Hello, hello. Welcome to the Improvising Life podcast. This is Lori Crawford, your host. And we are going to explore how life can be more livable by hitting return to sender to the idea of New Year's resolutions. Stay with me. Hold on now. Before we get wrapped up in everybody's storm of entertaining thoughts about how we can do more, how we can be more next year, or overexert ourselves to finish the year strong, what if instead we could identify who and how we are right now? This can also be thought of like, what's my accurate location? Ask ourselves, does this feel reflective of who I know I really am? Get curious on whether this way of being or functioning is sustainable. And are all of these things in line with the values that I'm committing to live through? And so go ahead and pause this. Rewind, pause, flip it and reverse it, whatever Missy Elliott inspires you to do. Because these questions get to be little peepholes through which we're seeing just how much of a clusterfuck we've been navigating, or whether we have been shifting into going through the motions and they're perhaps not our motions, whether we actually have a lot to celebrate and we can see and feel the changes that have happened over the year. But can we just have this moment to dial in before there anything enters our mind about moving forward? Can we have a time to even see where we are on the playground? Where are we on this Monopoly board? Just where, who, and how are we? Once that's happened, there's a way that we can start to identify where this end of the year not enoughness has been coming from and where it continues to come from. So this might be from a parent or a caregiver, a sibling, a neighbor, a teacher, society, right? Of this, oh, you have 30 days left of the year, go do this, right? Just starting to notice where all of that pressure is coming from, right? Because the fun fact, where it's coming from is the sender that we're going to be returning it to, right? Because there's this idea of that, someone else's urgency doesn't have to become your urgency. And that's really, in a nutshell, what this idea of hitting return to sender on the idea of New Year's resolutions is coming from, right? And so once you have those thoughts or realize, where is this urgency coming from? And also, a warm take, it can be ourselves, right? We can start to feel this pressure, sense of oh, I thought I'd be at a different place this year. I thought I'd be doing these other things. That's all valid experience, and it's normal because you're trying to keep up with all the things. But being able to just put some associations between where it's coming from and that backstory of how you've gotten to this point of how that voice is so loud that's saying you need to be overexerting yourself even more. Otherwise, next year is going to be a flop, right? And then this third sort of pool of pondery, so to speak. I'm so poetic today. It's what are the seeds of self that you can nurture and give a thriving chance day by day as you move forward through the rest of this year and as next year starts, right? And so really what that is once you're able to see who and how you are right now, once you're able to get more clear on the values that you want to be bringing into life and living through, right? Once you're really seeing what is your capacity, what needs to go off your plate, ready. Once you see all these facets of yourself, you're this really beautiful gemstone, right? You have all these different facets. You can start to see, oh, okay, what conditions are like? Do I feel the shiniest? Or, oh, do I want to be near these other crystals, right? And going back to the seed analogy, right? Because that goes more with this. But what seeds of yourself? So, oh, you know what? I realized that I actually did so great with setting boundaries in relationships this year. I want to continue that next year. Cool. So boundary setting can be that seed of yourself where you're saying, this is the capacity I do or don't have in this way. And I'm committing for the sake of myself and being able to show up in relationships the way I want to, I'm committing to upholding these boundaries, right? So in that example, boundaries, you're nurturing that by saying every day now as I move forward, that gets to be the one thing that I add on my own priority list, is upholding that boundary. Another sort of seed of self that you might want to be tending to is realizing when things like urgency, deadlines, this idea of like FOMO is coming up, like noticing as those are happening and switching out of autopilot and this knee-jerk reaction and being able to have that pause and ask yourself again, is this something that is in line with the values through which I want to be living life? Does this fit with who and how I am? Would this decision be sustainable? Does it need to be sustainable? Right, and be able to, again, have this day by day practice of saying, if I were to have access to thriving today, right, if thriving is even a possibility in the world, which aspect of me and prioritizing myself would exist? And then that gets to be enough of where you put your attention to and how you're tending to yourself. So instead of these huge sweeping resolutions of I'm going to be a totally different person, I'm going to finally use those 87 notebooks I bought in 11th grade, I'm going to actually open up those smelly gel pens and use them, right? All of these huge lofty goals, all of the things that you've been saying and telling yourself you should have done by now, right? We're going to return to sender all of those. And instead, can we have access to asking ourselves, if today's a day where I'm going to feel like I'm thriving, what small, meaningful to me element or component of myself or my relationships or the things that I love would be available? And then seeing if that's something that you can access, playing in that possibility right there. All right, now, so we've gotten through all this reflection, and, we're going to have a little fun for a minute. We're actually going to literally be playing with returning to center, right? You could do this by writing a poem. You could just mentally picture it. Maybe it's like a Care Bear heart beam, but instead it's, sort of like lasers are coming out and you're choop, choop, choop in, all this urgency and this idea that you have to be a totally different person, or you have to force yourself through so many things at the end of the year. However it's coming through that you want to have this practice, we're going to just finish this episode together with that idea of like literally returning to sender. So in my imaginary, example of what, is coming up right now, I'm just going to verbalize it because this is a podcast, right? So I'm going to say, hey, inhumane adulting social structure, I am returned to Sender'ing the idea that adulting means I have to know it all, do it all, be it all, and give it all without ever receiving adequate support to survive, right? I'm returned to Sender'ing all of that. And tomorrow when I wake up, if I have a chance to thrive, that will look like asking my body how it would like to move, asking my spirit what would give us a delightful giggle and light us up, and not asking anything of my mind, and trying to create a moment of space for it to just be a squishy object inside of a bowling ball. Okay, so I'm going to end here with all of that reflection. And if these prompts, right, offered you a little curiosity, the little sort of inside scoop of how you are really doing, of like, okay, some things are coming up and like, how do I implement this? I so would love to invite you in to the Shit Shifter Society. The doors are opening again for this winter season. So it's going to be really, I would say, it's middle of December now, so between middle of December and middle of January. I'm not someone who's going to be like, it has to be this date, because life is going to life, right? But I'd say about 2 weeks into January is when I'll start closing doors just for the sake of creating a cohort, right? So this would be our winter cycle, so 3 months in our monthly program. And this is for anyone who's breaking those intergenerational cycles, choosing to acknowledge how they might be adulting on autopilot and asking like, hey, what would it be like to feel more nourished? And like I have a community that I'm a part of that I feel retooled and resourced, so that way I actually understand all of the ways that the people who have, like brought me up through life have impacted me, and then being able to say, oh, is this something I want to heal from? Is this something that I'm happy to pass on? Really like being able to start having more tools and support to be navigating that aspect of who and how you really are right now. And super special shout out to our winter theme, right? So it's Hygge, which is spelled Hygge. It's the Swedish term for like this coziness, this comfort, but it's pronounced Hygge. So it's going to be like a Hygge hibernation for humanity. That's the theme, right? And what does that mean? Okay, so it's like, how can we have this guy? I'm going to be guiding and facilitating a sensory reset for us all, so that way we're able to sustain this resistance against the inhumane expectations and functionings of capitalism, patriarchy, racism, sexism, ableism, really everything that gets bottled up under the adulting and like do things correctly and properly umbrella. And so if we're going to be able to sustain this effort and practice of shifting the shit that doesn't serve us or humanity, that doesn't mean it's always every day pushing up against these huge mountains. And that's how we can continue to get so burnt out and ill and harm ourselves and others around us, because we aren't being restored, we aren't recalibrating, we aren't experiencing rest, and our nervous system isn't able to pause. So these 3 months together is going to be this facilitated, almost like you actually get to use those gift certificates to the spa vibe, right? Where each month I'll be guiding you through different sensory experiences. So, like all 5 of your senses. So that way you're equipped with not only the practices of how to experience deep nutritive rest, feeling restored, feeling like you have more capacity as time goes on to be yourself, and to have that idea of, could I thrive today be possible? And also looking at it as like it's winter for, the Northern Hemisphere, right? So it's this time to go in. It's this time to be slowing down. It's this time to be restoring and reserving things. And so how could we actually embrace that? How could this be part of our resistance of sort of hustle, push through culture? How can we be leaning in to the energy already in the season that is here with us? So that way when it is spring and it is time to feel that energy, to sort of jump out and to be, like boundlessly going towards something, we're not puttering out over the start line, because we've actually had this recuperation time. We've had this ability to actually feel like we didn't just put our head on the pillow and somehow it's already time to get back up. So I say all that to say, I would so love to have you join the Shit Shifter Society. I will have the link in the show notes for you to click. So if you would like to feel like you can be your full ass self, and that you have that, I just got out of the spa glow, I would love to see you there. I've realized I've said I'd love to see you there like 6 times now, and it is because I just get so excited with Shit Shifters, how we're having our community time and showing up and answering their questions and personalizing the experience to you all. Like, it's just so nutritive for me, and it's such an honor and a joy to be holding that space. So I will be bringing my full ass self into the space, so that way there's room for you to explore and embody and embrace your full ass self. So as always, have a razzle dazzle day, and if that's not accessible, you can put F on front and have a frazzle dazzle day. See you next time.